For many, it's a fine start to Friday. Plenty of sunshine about first thing, just some patchy cloud effect in the far southwest. And it stays mostly sunny for England and Wales, at least, into the afternoon. But cloudier skies will affect Scotland and Northern Ireland. Staying breezy here, with that breeze bringing further showers into the north of Scotland. And it will feel cool, but it's warming up further south, and high pressure will build from the south across all areas this weekend.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
we're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton Tonight. The delusional MSM fantasy that Boris Johnson was partying away night and day during lockdown was cast out today with the publication of the Sue Gray report. So why are the PM's critics still insisting on plunging the country into political turmoil over a couple of sandwiches, despite no smoking gun? My analysis of Partygate, which you won't hear on the BBC or Sly News, is in my digest next, and I'll get the reactions of my superstar panel too. Tonight, Daily Mail star columnist Amanda Platel, the entrepreneur and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. You'll get a chance to voice your opinion as well in the clash as I ask, do you accept the PM's apology?
Start by saying that I'm humbled by what has happened, and I renew my wholehearted apology for the gathering in the Cabinet room on the 19th of June 2020, my birthday, for which I received a fixed penalty notice.
Tory MP and Boris ally Michael Fabricant, founder of Pimlico Plumbers Charlie Mullins, and broadcaster Nina Mishkov will go head-to-head on that in the clash. Plus, with the birthday event that saw Boris Johnson receive his sole fine paling in comparison to Beargate, has the Sue Gray report put Keir Starmer in a more perilous position? We'll debate at 10. And with the report revealing the government was more concerned about the risk of Partygate events than the health risk. And with even the COVID task force failing to stick to social distancing regulations, should the government have realised that lockdown and other measures were unworkable sooner? Columnist extraordinaire Rod Little is uncancelled on that at 10:40. Yesterday, I broke that horrific news that Thomas Markle, the estranged father of the Duchess of Sussex, was rushed to hospital after suffering from a major stroke, prompting his daughter Samantha to lash out at the unforgivable torture Meghan has put him through, even as his health deteriorated following their fallout. Well, Samantha Markle will be live with me from Florida for her first live interview with an exclusive update on the health of her dad. That's at 10:15. as 19 children and 2 teachers are killed in a tragic US school shooting, plunging the fractured country into another toxic and divisive debate and prompting this outburst from President Biden.
When in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done?
So will America ever be able to solve its gun violence problem? US superstar journalist Megyn Kelly, sadly no stranger to covering these sorts of events, will be here live at 9:40. How are the MSM still justifying their hysteria over monkeypox? All positive Professor Carol Sikora, a former World Health Organization head, will bring a much-needed dose of medical reason at 9:50. Plus, as she becomes the longest-serving First Minister in history, but I'm not congratulating her, is Nicola Sturgeon the worst thing to have ever happened to Scotland? And what prompted former world heavyweight boxing champion Anthony Joshua to square up to a bunch of students?
Good jaws start breaking, people start chasing you out of uni, you don't know you will like it. Watch your mouth, you don't know who you're talking to sometimes.
Completely odd behaviour. I'll take you through it blow by blow. Plus, we'll have lots more in the Media Buzz coming up later in the show. You'll get a first look at tomorrow's newspapers as they drop too. I have a feeling I know what they might be leading on tomorrow. And after being dragged into Partygate, will pop icons ABBA round off the day with a shock victory in tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. The winner takes it all at 10:50. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. We're going to give you the fair and balanced coverage the MSM won't on the Sue Gray report tonight. But I had to kick off, I just had to, with the hilarious antics of Sly News party gal herself, Beth Rigby, at today's Prime Ministerial press conference. So, despite breaking the rules herself, but managing to avoid a fixed penalty notice, she still thinks she can take the moral high ground with Boris. But he wasn't taking it lying down today. Watch.
I really feel it's my job to get on.
Was there any point you thought about it, though? Because during any of it, did you ever think this...
Why are only you allowed to come back, Beth? It shows you have some special
people did.
position. OK, forgive me. Forgot it.
Good on him. It wasn't long ago since this happened in India, remember?
I ask you, yes.
In the meantime,
okay.
you promised to get on to the... I think people always hear, well, you did promise. You did promise to get on to the substance of this trip.
And I think Ben from the BBC did 7 minutes on Partygate, and I'm sure I haven't done as much as that. So
Well,
I'm just
this isn't the kind of competition to see who can do more.
I'm just
why
saying...
Why don't you get on to the subject of the trip?
Some advice, Boris. I think it's time to give up on Beth. My superstar panel weigh in on the Sue Gray damp squib shortly. Here they are, the Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platel, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. But on what is a very busy news day, let's get the 9 o'clock headlines now with Tamsin Roberts.
Dan, thank you. Good evening from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says he recognises people are indignant over the findings of Sue Gray's report into law-breaking parties in Downing Street, but has defied fresh calls to resign. The 37-page document, which contains photographs, highlights a number of events where many people gathered and alcohol was consumed excessively. It concludes that senior leadership must bear responsibility for this culture. Boris Johnson says he will keep moving forward and deliver on the priorities of the people.
When some of these officials and advisers were leaving their jobs, I briefly attended gatherings to thank them for everything they had done, because I believe that recognising achievement and preserving morale are essential duties of leadership. The police did not find my attendance at these occasions to be a breach of the rules, but they found otherwise in respect of some of those gatherings after I had left or when I was not in the building.
A woman whose father died from coronavirus has responded to the Sue Gray report today and has accused the government of raucous and savage behaviour.
My dad could barely breathe and speak to us. On the day that he died, we got a call from the hospital and were given two options of whether they would turn the machine off in front of us and he would die with us there, or they would turn it off, or they would let him kind of progress that afternoon and he would die that afternoon alone. And whilst we were experiencing that, the government was celebrating, drinking cheese and wine, organising parties together, making jokes about it, being rude to their security staff and their cleaners. It's disgusting. It makes me embarrassed to be British.
Well, a snap poll by YouGov has found that 59% of Brits think the Prime Minister should resign. The Texas governor says a teenage gunman who killed 21 people at a primary school posted on social media that he was going to shoot shortly before the attack. He also posted that he had shot his grandmother, who is now in a critical condition. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed while barricaded in a classroom. The 18-year-old suspect, Salvador Ramos, was shot dead by an officer at the scene. New York Governor Kathy Hochul says she'll do all she can to protect New Yorkers.
How does an 18-year-old purchase an AR-15 in the state of New York? I want to work with the legislature to change that. I want it to be 21. I think that's just common sense. I don't want 18-year-olds to have guns.
The Prince of Wales has met Ukrainian refugees during a trip to Romania. On a tour of a donation centre for refugees in Bucharest, Prince Charles told families he is full of admiration for the Ukrainian people. More than 1 million Ukrainians have crossed the border into Romania since the war began. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Dan Wootton Tonight.
There is no smoking gun, not even close. I have read the whole 47-page Sue Gray report, so you don't have to. And what emerges is a small group of out-of-touch civil servants and Downing Street staff organising low-level leaving drinks and Zoom quizzes while their bosses were telling us we should continue to cower in our homes. But the idea you've seen propagated in the mainstream media for months, led by the campaigning folk at the BBC, The Guardian, ITV News, the Daily Mirror, Channel 4 News, and Sly News, of course, that Boris Johnson was partying like he was at an Ibiza nightclub during lockdown is nothing more than a delusional fantasy designed to depose a Brexit-delivering leader. So today's publication of the Gray Report means the 6-month farce of what's become known as the Partygate scandal must now finally end. But of course, there's no chance of that, given we have a campaigning MSM that went predictably hysterical today.
The reason those photographs we saw earlier this week are so damaging, though, is because you can't really blame that on an aide. You know you were there with a glass of wine holding it up.
It feels like the Prime Minister has been weakened by all this. He doesn't have the same space he did before within his own parliamentary party.
You made the rules as Prime Minister, so it does beg the question, are you a liar?
Nobody doubts that he lied. The question is whether he did it, consciously and expressly.
Did you never for a moment during the past 5 months, or even this morning, when that report landed on your desk and you read it blow by blow, think about resigning?
You can see plates of some kind of food, some orange juice, possibly white wine, possibly something else in his glass. Simon Case there with a can of Coke.
A can of Coke, shock horror. The report is far less sexy than any of that coverage indicates. The Prime Minister tended to turn up for a few minutes, basically to give a speech as part of what he believed were work responsibilities before returning to his office. Crucially, here are the pictures of the one event in the Cabinet Room on June the 19th, 2020, that Boris Johnson and his Chancellor Rishi Sunak received a fixed penalty notice from the Met Police. So, yep. As the Sly News bloke said, a few M&S sandwiches, a bottle of orange juice, 6 unopened cans of beer, from what I could see. Certainly no cake. What's more, Gray confirms the gathering did not form part of the day's official diary, and both Boris and Rishi were, quote, not aware of the event in advance. Great rights. Boris returned from an external visit to number 10 Downing Street at approximately 2:20 p.m. and was taken into the cabinet room, which had been set up with sandwiches, snacks, soft drinks and cans of beer. It lasted just 20 minutes, and Rishi was only there because he arrived early for his next meeting. So, is anyone really suggesting with a straight face today that a 20-minute socially distanced birthday sandwich between meetings should see this country plunged into complete political turmoil by overthrowing the 2019 election result in the midst of a cost of living scandal and European war? Well, yes, they are. Of course they are. Even Sir Bear Korma, as Boris christened him today, who is facing his own police investigation.
Has gone on too long. The game is up. You cannot be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker. And it's time to pack his bags.
He is himself under investigation by the police, Mr. Speaker, and yet, I'm not going to mince my words. I've got to say this: Sir Bear Korma, Mr. Speaker, is currently failing to hold himself to the same high standards that he demanded of me.
Sadly, as ever, I felt virtually everyone in the media missed the point today. In fact, the only person who asked a sensible question at the Downing Street press conference was GBNews political correspondent Tom Harwood. Look.
Hindsight, were the rules that you set simply too unclear, too illogical and too tight for too long?
We should have recognised that the boundary between work events and socialising for people who are continuously working together in the same place was going to be hard to draw, and things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently from now on.
I don't agree, Prime Minister. In fact, my biggest regret from this farce is that Boris didn't use that opportunity today to condemn the COVID lockdown laws with the benefit of wisdom and hindsight. Because let me be absolutely clear, the rules were wrong. They were flawed, they were inhumane, they were draconian, they were actually unconscionable. None of those in power followed the rules. Not Bojo, not Slippery Starmer, not even COVID hysteric scheming Sturgeon in Scotland. That's the lesson I'm going to take from Partygate. No rule-breaking politician will ever steal my liberties and freedoms again. To respond now, my superstar panel, the Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platel, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Amanda Platel, there was no smoking gun. Sue Gray delivered a damp squib.
I'm afraid it's true. No smoking gun, no silver bullet, and Keir Starmer turned up with a water pistol. It was quite pathetic. I have to preface all of this, though, Dan, with the fact that there are people like the woman that was on earlier whose father had died. I couldn't go to 2 funerals during lockdown. I hated the rules, but... and there are a lot of people who will never forgive Boris because they personally suffered during that, and I totally understand that. But for the majority of people in this country, I believe that they just want an end to all this now. If you can seriously say that picture that you used before of Boris standing at the end of a table with a few delicious Marks and Spencer sandwiches and Rishi walking in with his jacket off, you know, if you really think that is enough to remove the most successful Prime Minister we've had... This moment. That is the picture. That is the picture. We held it up in the office this morning. I'm just going, I cannot believe that this is the thing you got fined for.
No wonder they didn't leak it, because it's not a smoking gun.
And it's orange juice and apple juice on the table. And anyway, I think that we've got to a point now where we have to all look at the evidence. You've read it, I've read it. I don't imagine that many of the Daily Mail readers will have to read it because they rely upon you and me to give them the information. But there was not a smoking gun in here. There was not something that can take Boris out. The people who hate Boris will continue to hate Boris. Labour had an own goal to really hit him hard. Keir Starmer is not capable of doing that. And he's still waiting for his own investigation from Durham Police, and they still haven't contacted the two guys who took the video of the party, of the Cormorgate.
Adam, I lost a relative over the course of COVID who I was unable to visit before her death in a care home. Actually, none of us in the family could visit her for months and months and months. I find that disgusting, but I don't want to politicise the Partygate report with the stories of the traumas that we all went through. What I want, Adam, is for people to start speaking up against the rules.
Yep.
It was the rules that were wrong.
Exactly. I mean, Steve Baker tweeted only last week, the restrictions were wrong. They were unscientific. We've proved that. Numerous experts have proved, you know, most of the restrictions were totally unnecessary.
And your business was hammered.
Right, my businesses were hammered. We're serving people outside freezing while, you know, so-called parties are going on.
Yeah.
I lost my nan during one of the last bits of lockdown. I snuck into a hospital to see my nan, to say goodbye. It was the last time I see her. And that's not, I don't regret that one bit. I broke the rules, I broke the law, whatever I did, but there was no way that I was not going to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Now, I think these pictures have put it on Keir Starmer because they look very similar to the situation that he's facing.
Indeed,
now,
we're going to talk about actually later on in
you
the
know,
show.
so, look, I just think we need, the viewers out there need to realise that these restrictions were totally wrong and in most cases totally unnecessary.
Actually, James, you think people still have a right to be upset with Boris Johnson?
Absolutely, and also he is the man who put these rules in place. I feel like I was one of the lucky ones, of course, but I lost my DJ career. I gave birth 3 days after the third lockdown. I had to beg the hospital to allow my partner in until I was in established labour, which also meant I had to get a physical check that I didn't want. So we are not debating when I feel angry that I followed the rules. From the 15th of March, when I first got a temperature, to mid-June or end of June, whenever the first lockdown lifted, I didn't see a soul apart from my partner who I lived with, who I feel lucky because I have friends who literally did not see a soul. And I'm shocked that you guys are saying there's no smoking guns in this report. I'm wondering if we have read the same report. Page 15, pizza, Prosecco, karaoke machine, someone was sick, there was a fight, going home at 3:13 in the morning.
Level civil servants.
But I'm sorry, as a leader, the definition of leader, a person in control of a group or a country or a situation. Boris was responsible for putting us under what you're calling draconian measures.
It wasn't just Boris, it was also the scientific advisors.
Boris is the leader.
Who he took the advice
from. Boris is the leader. If I saw things that were happening, I wouldn't stay in and for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. We were told we weren't even allowed to socialise outside. There were 16 parties. 8 of these events, the Met Police have given fixed penalty notices, 126. Then we were told, wait for the Sue Gray report, wait for the Sue Gray report. I'm sorry, like, lack of respect to security and cleaning staff.
By civil servants.
Martin Reynolds saying better than focusing on our drinks, which we seem to have got away from.
But actually, I'm going to counter some of what you're saying because I've looked very closely at the report today. So Boris Johnson goes to an event to say goodbye to a staff member. He arrives between 6:19. He's left by 6:45. On the Zoom quiz, he was literally there for 12 minutes. So this idea that the Prime Minister was in any way involved in these parties, it's just a fallacy. It's a fantasy.
He was sensationalised by the mainstream media.
He was at a lot of them, and we've seen pictures of him partying the garden with his wife and child. She's been given fixed penalty notices. The supposed ABBA party party wasn't even investigated. And again, people are saying the event was crowded and noisy, such that people working elsewhere in Number 10 heard significant levels of noise. Boris Johnson has been telling us for months, wait for this report, and I was on, you know, he knew what he was doing, and they're only apologising because they've been caught. And I'm sorry, like, they were the ones responsible for the lockdowns, and we all made sacrifices.
Are you angry at Neil Ferguson, who set a lot of these
I'm angry. I feel stupid for following the lockdown, 100%. But I followed the lockdown, and I made sacrifices.
He was having the rumpy pumpy with some young lady when he was telling us to all stay locked down.
The ABBA party was, so-called ABBA party, was in Boris Johnson's private apartments.
And it was a meeting with
his
5
wife.
special
It was
advisors.
5 special advisors. And I just have to say, probably I'm the only one who's actually walked those hallowed halls. Never in government, but, you know, I've been in and out of that, of Number 10 and politics for a long time. The drinking culture's been there for a long time. It is a war, and there are up to 400 people who can be downstairs from Number 10 and Number 11 in the offices. There is no way that Boris could be held accountable. Be like someone asking you, you know, someone in, you know, there is no basement here, is there? Someone, you know,
We're in the basement, love.
Sorry, but if you're a leader, you've got to walk the talk.
Ashley James, thank you so much, my superstar panel. Don't worry, they're going to be here all night, so there's much more of this coming up. But also on the way, will one of the deadliest school shootings in US history, which saw 19 children murdered at a Texas primary school, change the debate on gun violence in America? US superstar journalist Megyn Kelly will be here to give her unique insight on yesterday's tragic events live from the US. But up next in The Clash, do you accept Boris Johnson's apology? Tory MP, Boris ally Michael Fabricant, founder of Pimlico Plumbers Charlie Mullins, and broadcaster Nina Mishkov will battle it out next. But I really want to know about you, actually. Have you forgiven Boris Johnson, and why? Email me now, dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me at GBNews. We've got a poll running there too. Really looking forward to these results. They're coming up after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
US media superstar Megyn Kelly and the Positive Professor are still to come this hour, but it's time now for The Clash. Now, it was a day of apologies for Boris Johnson in the wake of the Sue Gray report. Facing both MPs and the nation, Johnson took full responsibility for the rule-breaking at Number 10 and promised that measures had since been put in place to ensure rule-breaking on the same scale would not happen again. And while Sir Pier Korma and the MSM don't seem to want to accept his apology and have renewed their calls for the PM to go, what do you think? Do you accept the Prime Minister's apology for any breaches in Number 10? Let me know what you think. Email me, dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me at GBNews. We've got a poll running there too, the results shortly. But to help you make up your mind, I'm joined by Pimlico Plumbers founder Charlie Mullins, the broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov, and the Conservative MP for Lichfield, Michael Fabricant. Good evening all. I'm going to ask you the simple question first, and can you give your reasoning too? Charlie Mullins, do you forgive Boris Johnson and why?
No, I don't forgive him. And the reasons are obviously why. I think morally it's incorrect. But unfortunately, he's going to stay in, and I think we have to now support him and make the best of it rather than spend more time on Partygate.
So you don't forgive, but you're prepared to move on?
Well, we have to move on. I mean, we've spent too much time already, and it's more serious things we need to get on with, and, you know, he's not going, so we might as well back him, tolerate him.
Michael Fabricant, do you forgive your leader?
Well, you know what? I know him, and I do forgive him. I mean, I genuinely think that he took advice.
No,
he was told that he was in a work environment, he wasn't breaking the law. All the wild things that happened, like those Friday night parties, was when he was 45 miles away at Chequers and didn't know anything about it. So, yeah, you know what? I was going to say I'm a Christian. Actually, I'm not a Christian, but I'm certainly into forgiveness.
Nina Mishkov, do you forgive Boris Johnson?
I absolutely don't. His apology was waffle, piffle. There was no real meaning behind it. It seems to me that if you apologise, there should be some remorse, there should be contrition, there should be a sense of responsibility. None of those things were present. You know, he is a man who is so accustomed to apologising in his life. He has lied so often in his life. Can you imagine? He has lied to everybody. He's lied to his bosses, he's lied to his wives, he's lied to his mistresses, he's lied to Parliament, as far as I'm concerned. He has lied to his party, he has lied to the Labour Party, he's lied to the country, and why on earth should we believe anything he says?
Michael, you've got to come back on that.
Well, I hope you can hear me, because I just had somebody fiddling with my microphone, so am I on air?
Can we hear you loud and clear?
Can you hear me loud and clear? Well, you know, as I say, I just wonder whether Nina can tell me, when did she ever like Boris? Or is this just a continuation of a very long grudge?
No, I actually, when Boris was first elected Mayor of London, I thought, like most people, gosh, well, there's a breath of fresh air.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Well, that doesn't matter. You asked me a question, I'm answering it. I thought the breath of fresh air and all his, you know, he was, you know, smart, and he was this, and he was different, and his hair was messy, and he was somebody that...
His hair's still messy.
He was somebody who could... Let's not discuss hair, please. Somebody who could make a big impression on a kind of global stage. And then
which he's done, Nina.
And then I saw that, and it has all turned negative, because you suddenly saw the real Boris, the red and tooth and claw, absolute selfish, narcissistic ambition.
But don't you give him credit? Don't you give him credit, Nina, for at least, you know, we got the vaccine before, or 3-4 months before the European Union. 5 months...
Israel were vaccinating people before us.
Yeah, but not on a general programme, they weren't. The first general programme, and I know Israel extremely well, that was an experimental programme. Do you really have to go back
to vaccine? We're not talking about...
All right, talk about Ukraine.
Let's not...
Let Charlie Mullins
Nina, also, you have got to respect the guy for doing Brexit and the vaccination.
Yeah. I do not respect him for doing Brexit, because he dragged us into...
No, I don't believe in Brexit.
So, Nina, OK, so let's be honest. That's what this comes down to. It's always what it comes down to. You are, with the greatest of respect, a massive Ramona, and Ramonas want Boris Johnson out of office because you know that he is the only man who will see Brexit through.
Elevate this debate so that we don't call each other names.
But you were the one who brought up...
or a Brexiteer.
You're the one who brought up
We've just called Boris Johnson our Prime Minister a liar.
I didn't bring up Brexit. You...
No, I brought Brexit up.
I didn't. I have accepted the fact that Brexit has happened and we are going over the cliff.
Was that when you hated him?
I don't hate him. I don't hate him.
Seems like you do, Nina. It's like you've got a visceral negativity towards the man.
I don't respect him. And this country deserves somebody with integrity, with morals, with standards to lead them. He has debased his office. He has debased the government, and he has debased this country.
So who would you like to take over, Nina?
I would like anybody to take over rather than him. I really would. Seriously.
But do you give him no credit at all, though, Nina?
Look, he has great charisma. He has great charm. He's a brilliant politician. But when you have all of that, you also have to have morals, standards, you have to have a vision, you have to have empathy for other people, and he is a narcissistic man who doesn't care for anybody else.
Michael Fabricant, this almost... And look, I'm not saying specifically Nina, because we have a lot of people on the show who feel the same way, but it's almost like a deranged hatred of
I am not deranged, and it's not a hatred.
But you
I
do
just
hate
have
him, though,
no
don't you?
respect.
But
I
Michael
have no
Fabricant,
respect.
what do you think?
Well, you know, he's a Marmite character. Now, I can tell you, I absolutely love Marmite on toast, and I do love...
And you love Boris running the country.
Oh, you know, there are Marmite men and there are not Marmite men, and I'm a Marmite man. I'm also a Boris man. Why? Because actually I do think he is profoundly honest and decent. You know, first thing tomorrow morning... Let me just... Nina, stop. Just let me say something without you squawking at me, please. And, you know, first thing tomorrow morning... First thing tomorrow morning, he's getting up early, I found out, and I think this is, like, first time anyone said this on television today. And I know he's going around thanking all the cleaners because he felt so bad about what happened.
Really?
Getting up at about 6:30 to get the early morning shift. I hope none of the cleaners are watching because it's meant to be a surprise.
Do you know that's one of the things that what he said in Parliament today? He said, and he thought it was appalling about the cleaners and the security guards.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely right. But doesn't it smack of that elitist must take care of the servants, otherwise it's really bad
Well, you
form?
can't win, can he, Nina, with you? If he didn't do that, you'd be saying he's posh. If he does do it, you say he's posh. There's nothing wrong with being posh.
What I really despise about him is that he said he takes full responsibility. So he takes full responsibility of the whole atmosphere of everything to do with Number 10. If he'd taken full responsibility, he would have resigned. Why are people...
Why should he? Charlie Mullins, you run a massive business.
Why?
If one of your plumbers were to make a mistake and do something wrong or break the law, I wouldn't expect you to resign for it, but I would expect you to put rules in place to perhaps shake up your management. Yeah. And, Charlie, that's exactly what Boris Johnson has done at Number 10.
The fact is he has to apologise. If we don't accept the apology, then we have to wait till the next election and then do the voting then. But what more can the man do but apologise? We all know morally it's wrong, but what more can he do?
Nina, is there no charity in your heart?
There is plenty of charity in my heart, and that charity is for the people who have been bereaved, who didn't have a chance to say goodbye to their partners.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, and
I don't like this politicising of people who lost relatives, Nina. I find it
Amanda was
very
talking about it before. I'm not politicising it.
You're just raising
Nina.
I am not politicising it. I'm saying those are the people I have sympathy for.
Charlie, you come in.
Yeah, we all have sympathy for the people, and it's a terrible thing that's happened. But do you not think we have to draw a line under it and move forward and try and concentrate on the things that are more important?
We have to move forward with a different leader.
Well, why don't we do that then?
With a different leader, because this man is dragging this country down.
But Nina, can I just ask Nina?
This man, who you say is dragging the country down, was the first country in the world, as I said earlier, to have a general programme for the vaccine. Some 4 months before any other country in the world was supplying... Stop interrupting me for a second, please.
You two are like man and wife, you know that.
Was providing arms to Ukraine. And, you know, in Ukraine, he is regarded as the national hero, not Macron, not Scholz, and not even Biden.
Listen.
You know, so he has not brought this country down.
Zelensky
and in fact, all the sort of nonsense that we're hearing now, all this nonsense that we're... Let me just finish and then I'll come over to you. But all this nonsense that we hear, and you say it's dragging this country down, isn't recognised in any other part of the world. The only time they think we're mad is when they listen to people like you who say that a leader like Boris Johnson, who has achieved so much, could be brought down because he had a birthday cake on his birthday.
It wasn't even a cake, Michael. It was a can of beer. It's not just a
birthday cake. It is not just a birthday cake.
Nina, can I just ask you what right you believe you have to subvert democracy? Boris Johnson was elected in a landslide in 2019. The only group of people in this country who, before the next general election, are allowed to boot him from office are Tory MPs, Michael Fabricant being one of them. What right do you have to demand that the public vote doesn't matter, that it doesn't mean anything?
The public vote does matter, and if you'll notice that the 59% in the YouGov poll say that Boris should resign. So I think you three are out of step with the people. Out of step with the people. Most people... the majority of people in this country think Boris and know
Charlie,
Boris
do you
is
believe that?
They don't accept his apology and they would like him to resign.
Nina, take a breath. his own party at the moment are still with him. There's only 20 of the MPs, Conservative MPs, that have got a no
They're on the
confidence
wrong
vote.
side of history. They're fools.
They're what?
On the wrong side
So
of
you've
history.
just called Michael Fabricant a fool?
Well, if he blindly supports a leader who is so patently lacking in any kind of moral fibre, any kind of integrity, then I'm afraid that you are following a false hero.
So Michael Fabricant, according to Nina, you're on the wrong side of history and you're a fool. Why is she wrong?
She's wrong because on the big calls, Boris has got it right.
Tell me about the vaccine again. Tell me about the vaccine.
I won't go all through...
Tell me something else other than the vaccine.
It is like a parrot, sort of interrupts you at random.
You've told me I'm squawking.
Well, you are. Just let me speak without
interruption. I can be very rude about you, and I haven't been.
It's very rude of you, you know.
I have not been... I have not
you
called
are,
you
because
a
you won't
parrot.
let me speak. I mean, it's remarkable.
Let's all take a turn.
You've been ranting on for long enough.
Oh.
So you
shall I answer or...
Yes, Michael Fabricant, final word to you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Final word, because he gets the big calls right, because he is a decent person, and I don't...
Where do you draw your
Nina, it's Michael's turn. It's Michael's final word. Nina, behave.
I don't believe in all this inverse snobbery, and I'm afraid Nina loathes him because of Brexit, and Nina loathes him, and you know what?
Because he has no integrity.
She always has loathed him.
I have not.
Great stuff. Thank you so much to all three of you. I loved it.
Your moral bar is
Nina,
so
you
low
always want to get the final word. That was Pimlico Plumbers founder Charlie Mullins, the broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov, and the Conservative MP for Lichfield, Michael Fabricant. That's sweet, isn't it, that Boris Johnson is going to be going to apologise personally to all of those cleaners at 6:30 a.m. tomorrow morning at number 10 Downing Street. Very decent thing to do. So who do you agree with on this? Well, Faye on Twitter says, I don't accept his apology, but he's not going to resign, so it's time to move on. I'm more interested in why the man who says he has integrity and banged on about this Starmer had a party and broke the rules and is now pressuring the police to let him off. Good point, Faye. From Cecilia, I accept his apology. I think the PM has been set up. The people will vote in the next general election if they want him out, not politicians or the media. And from David on email, saying, no, I don't accept his apology does not mean I want this to continue. Time to draw a line under this and deal with immigration and the cost of living disaster. Your verdict is now, and this is fascinating, 64% of you say you do accept the PM's apology today, 36% of you with Nina and say you don't. So, coming up, should we believe the monkeypox hysteria being whipped up by the mainstream media? Our positive professor Carol Sikora will give some much-needed common sense on the issue. That's at 9:50. But next, will yesterday's school shooting in Texas change the course of the US gun control debate? Megyn Kelly is on the way next to give her thoughts on how America can move forward after this unspeakable tragedy.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My exclusive interview with Samantha Markle coming up, but it's time for star US journalist Megyn Kelly. And America was plunged into another toxic and divisive debate yesterday after one of the biggest mass school shootings ever. The gunman opened fire at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, murdering 19 young children and 2 adults before he was killed by law enforcement. The 18-year-old shooter was armed with a handgun and an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle when he barricaded himself inside a 4th-grade classroom where all his victims were, according to investigators. This latest school shooting, the 27th this year alone and deadliest since Sandy Hook a decade ago, has reignited the fierce debate over gun control in America and resulted in an extraordinary primetime Oval Office address from a furious President Joe Biden.
As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done? Where in God's name is our backbone to have the courage to deal with it and stand up to the lobbies? It's a time to turn this pain into action for every parent, for every citizen in this country. We have to make it clear to every elected official in this country. It's time to act.
So, Megyn, there was lots of anger there from Joe Biden, but do you think he got the tone right?
No, not at all. I think he's supposed to be the comforter in chief in a moment like this. He's supposed to offer his condolences to the people of Texas, to try to explain. I thought the part where he talked about what it's like to lose a child, because he did back in his younger days, was good. And then he had to go to the gun place. And I understand that's how the left wing of the country feels, but it's divisive because the right wing of the country thinks that's a non-starter. And I'll tell you, Dan, you and I don't get into my own personal politics that much, but I'm from New York State. New York State is largely blue. I grew up in a town that wasn't very pro-gun and a family that wasn't very pro-gun, though we were Catholic, so socially we had our conservative leanings. I'm not a pro-gun person. I'm a lawyer. So I would like to know, as a mother and a lawyer, show me the reform that's going to protect my children, and I'm behind it. I will support it. I don't care if it upsets the pro-gun lobby, not even a bit. I care about my children. But literally, they haven't shown me one that would have prevented this shooting or the shooting we had in Buffalo, New York last week. The one the Democrats are pushing now is about universal background checks for private sales of guns so that you can run a background check on, if I want to give my gun to you, they'd have to run a background check on you. Those are not the cases that lead to these guns being in the hands of mass shooters. That's never the problem. Then they say, okay, well, let's expand the FBI waiting period where the FBI looks into your background from 3 days to 7 days. Okay, there's one shooting I can think of where that might have played a role, but probably not, because the FBI is overworked and understaffed and really doesn't prioritize these background checks. And if they don't get back to you within that 3 or maybe expanded 7 days, you get the gun. Here's the reality. I was born into a country in which there are now about 330 million people, and there are almost 430 million guns. There are over 400 million guns in the United States. People don't realize that. There's no getting rid of the guns. That's absurd. It's not going to happen. I didn't ask for this world. I was born into it. Those children down in Texas were born into it. And it's a reality with which we must deal, because the right to have a gun is written into the Constitution. It is a constitutional right. You may disagree with that if you are on the left. The Supreme Court has so held. That's the final ruling. That's it. So
and I think that's
one
of the points, Megyn, that a lot of folk in the UK don't understand. It is a constitutional issue in the US. But look,
I just want to play you, Megan, this very emotional moment from Steve Kerr. So he coaches the Golden State Warriors NBA team, and he's gone viral after he gave what can only be described as a very heated press conference after the shooting.
Children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. Do you realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check? 90% of us. We are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
So obviously, Megan, he was very angry. Is that 90% figure that he points to over the background checks true?
The majority is in favor of background checks for these guns and gun sales. And it's great. Obviously, you want to look into the background of the person applying for a gun permit. But, Dan, it wouldn't have stopped these shootings. The vast majority of these shootings, especially these school shootings, you know what they're committed with? A gun that a kid got from his dad's closet. The kids take the guns from the parents in the vast majority of the school shootings cases. So the background check is irrelevant. I'm sorry, Steve Kerr, but that's a red herring. And I get it. That's his emotion speaking. We are all feeling that same emotion of frustration, but that's not a solution. What are the real solutions? The only real solution, Dan, would be an absolute assault weapons ban. I mean, take all of them. We tried it for 10 years. From 94 to 2004, it didn't work. By the way, that one didn't take all the guns. It just said no more new sales of assault weapons. But 85% of the weapons that are sold on the marketplace today are semi-automatic. You know, where people don't have to reload. You press the one bullet for one pull of the trigger. And that's what an AR-15 is. That's an AR-15, which is the scary gun that's used in most of these shootings, is really just sort of a long semi-automatic pistol. It just looks scarier. The most deadly school shooting of all time was at Virginia Tech back in around 2004. That was done with handguns, semi-automatic handguns. So we come up with these checks, the kind Steve Kerr is pushing for, and it's because they will make us feel better, because we feel like we need to be doing something, the way we did after 9/11 with taking off our shoes at the airport. And it was no more than a comfort check. And while I'd love to go off on mental health and how we need to shore that up here, and we do, that's not going to fix it either. That this kid, this shooter, he had none of the red flags that would have flagged him for a background check. Not one, not that's come out yet. And he has none of the red flags that would have even alarmed a normal person as like, oh my God, he's a sociopath. He's killing animals. The closest thing was he shot a BB gun out of his car at random people. Terrible. Obviously, none of us would do that. But in many communities, they'd be like, he's a dopey teenager who did something stupid. Nothing in his background would have flagged him or prevented him. And in the states here that have said under 21, you can't have a gun, the laws have been overturned as unconstitutional. So even making it such that somebody his age couldn't get a gun is a non-starter. So we have to deal with the reality we're given. We are a huge country. We're way bigger than the UK. You know that. And we have lots of territory that's poorly protected by law enforcement, where people really depend on their guns. God forbid somebody comes running across the southern border, a cartel member, a gang member, and they need their guns. And they're not going to be giving them up anytime soon. Even if we wanted to make them, it wouldn't happen. And so part of this leads you to the final conclusion of, what can we do? We live in a free country where there are psychos and there is ubiquitous access to guns. And even if we passed every restriction the Democrats want right now, Dan, not much of that would change.
And so, Megan, as a mum of children at school in the US, what do you do? Does it become about pressuring the schools to up security? I mean, what's the solution for you as a parent so you don't get that phone call that everyone dreads?
Yes, a madman with a gun is most dangerous in a gun-free zone. I mean, that's just the truth. And they pick soft targets for a reason. Now, at this school down in Texas, my understanding is from law enforcement that there was a school resource officer at the front
with a gun.
He was armed. He was armed, but
And
the
he's been
teachers were
shot.
banned from teachers and administrators were banned from having guns. And down in Texas, had that ban not existed, the odds are pretty good somebody would have had a gun. And so, what I would like to see, and I'm not saying this is the solution, but at least I would. How about, we just gave $40 billion to Ukraine? Could we have some of that money to shore up our schools, to at least make it single point of access and put 2 guards there? The kids wouldn't even have to know. They don't necessarily even have to be in uniform, but armed guards there to keep watch over our most precious.
Terrifying situation. Megan Kelly, thank you so much for that analysis. Of course, Megan, star journalist, host of the brilliant Megan Kelly show, which you can find on Sirius XM, YouTube, and as a podcast. Now, coming up with the birthday event that saw Boris Johnson receive his sole fine, paling in comparison to Beargate, has the Sue Gray report actually put Keir Starmer in a more perilous position? We'll debate whether Korma is about to bite the Labour leader in the media buzz at 10 p.m. But first, why the MSM insistent on making monkeypox the new COVID? Our positive Professor Carol Sikora is on the way next to give some much-needed perspective.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages coming up, but time now for our positive Professor Carol Sikora. And with millions of folk all over the world now believing monkeypox is coming to infect them at almost any moment, the scaremongering over the previously little-known ailment just seems to be off the scale, really. The hysteria being spread by the health establishment, especially the World Health Organization, aided and abetted by the mainstream media, is gaslighting, in my opinion.
Experts are warning there is a risk that monkeypox could become endemic in Europe if the current outbreak isn't brought under control.
Monkeypox is continuing to spread, so we're going to be answering your questions.
Anyone who's been told by the health authorities that they've had high-risk contact with an infected person has to isolate for 21 days. That means anyone who's been a household contact, a sexual contact, or has even changed an infected person's bedding without appropriate protective gear.
The desire to make us scared by talking about an illness that has been around for decades and has known treatments is part of the plan, I think, to keep us in a cycle of fear. Well, Carol Sikora was previously head of the cancer operation for the World Health Organization. He's here to provide his medical expertise with a much-needed dose of reason. So, Carol, does the monkeypox reaction show hysteria has almost become enshrined in the modern public health playbook post-COVID?
I'm afraid so, Dan. It really has. You know, I'd not heard of monkeypox before. I've been a doctor for 50 years nearly. And obviously smallpox, cowpox, chickenpox, they're all related viruses, big viruses, totally different from corona. It's a sign of the times. You know, we've seen restriction of people's freedom across the world, some countries really devastatingly bad. You know, if it's in the name of public health, that's great if it's important. But the evidence base for a lot of those restrictions, whether it's lockdown, whether it's travel bans, whether it's filling ridiculously long forms in multiple languages to say where you're going to stay when you enter a country, whether it's doing PCR tests and so on, there was no evidence base for all that. And of course, if you take total health, which you have to in any healthcare system, whether it's the NHS here or other systems in Europe and other countries, it's got to be how you can actually help the most people of the population. And if you get distracted by this, monkeypox, 57 cases, maybe 62 now, who knows? No one's in hospital, no one's on a ventilator, people get better. Doesn't look good. You get scars, you've just seen the pictures. And I've seen you argue with some of your participants in your program. I've been away for 2 days working abroad, but I've seen them now. And there's no doubt this is hysteria. And it fills newspapers inches, you know.
I know, but Carol, we've got to step away from that because otherwise people are going to be living in constant terror. And I find it so disturbing that immediately, Carol, you know, you've got organisations, you've got governments saying, oh, we will have a 21 legal mandatory lockdown period. We didn't ever have stuff like that before. Can't we all just take a breather?
I think so. Tomorrow I'm going to go on the train to London with an Ebola suit, you know, those things with a helmet, and just go on the train and say, I'm scared of monkeypox to everybody and see the reaction. It's a complete overreaction to it. And of course, you know, people with high visibility vests and clipboards are in their element with all this going on, directing people. I think we've got to get out of this. It's a reflection of the fear inspired by coronavirus. If something else comes along, we think it's going to be as bad. You know, people do get it.
But this isn't even new, Carol. And there's a vaccine, there's treatment, you know, and you've got Sly News sending alerts to my phone every day saying there were 7 new cases of monkeypox. Who cares? It's manipulation.
Exactly. I mean, if you take the diseases that are killing people in Britain, it's heart disease, cancer and stroke. These are the things we have to go for. A lot of it's preventable, and those that are not prevented, we can treat. But if you get deviated into corona or monkeypox now, you're going to spend a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a lot of professional time, doctors, nurses, healthcare workers around the place, deviating from what's really important in medicine, and people will suffer. So let's not do it. Let's keep righteous and on target for the total health of the population, not something that's an artifact of the media.
Sage advice as ever from our very calm and considered positive Professor Carol Sikora. Thank you so much. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton, and breaking tonight, in the wake of the Sue Gray report, Boris Johnson has moved to finally put Partygate behind him by apologising directly to the influential 1922 Committee of Conservative MPs. But with the affair done and dusted, is the real pressure now on slippery Keir Starmer, who remains under police investigation for his own beer-swigging and curry-scoffing scandal in Durham. We'll see just how tomorrow's front pages have covered all this drama before getting stuck in to that next with my superstar panel, the Daily Mail columnist Samantha Markle, entrepreneur Adam Brooks and broadcaster Ashley James. Plus, with Partygate proving the COVID rule setters cared more about image than the virus itself, Rod Liddle explains why we now possibly can't be expected to suffer harmful lockdowns ever again. He's Uncancelled at 10:40.
Now, yesterday, you'll remember I broke the news that Meghan Markle's father, Thomas, would now not be travelling to the UK to join us for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee here on GBNews after suffering from a major stroke. His other daughter, Samantha Markle, is absolutely furious with her estranged sister, the Duchess of Sussex, who she says has given unforgivable treatment of their dad. She's joining me for an exclusive live interview from Florida that you won't want to miss. It's at 10:15. It's hard to believe, but we've now had nearly 8 years of her scheming. Today, Nicola Sturgeon is officially Scotland's longest-serving First Minister. But is she the worst thing to happen to our friends in Scotland? We'll discuss that at 10:30. Now, I'm feeling all shook up with this next flick, destined for the big screen.
A lot of people saying a lot of things, but in the end, you gotta listen to yourself.
We'll take a sneak peek at an exciting new Elvis Presley biopic starring Tom Hanks and directed by the brilliant man behind Moulin Rouge. Meanwhile, how's this for a knockout?
Your jaws start breaking, people start chasing you out of this uni. You don't know you will like it. Watch your mouth, because you don't know who you're talking to sometimes.
That's heavyweight boxer Anthony Joshua giving mouthy university students a run for their money when he confronted them in their own apartment just because they'd gobbed off about him out the window. So was he right to teach them a lesson? I'm not sure, but we'll explore all of it and much more as the media buzz continues. Tomorrow's newspapers are coming up next, and for the remainder of the show too. Plus, I'll crown tonight's greatest Briton and Union jackass at 10:50. But before all of that, the news headlines at 10 with Tamsin Roberts.
Dan, thank you, and good evening from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says he overwhelmingly believes he should remain in office despite public anger over the report into Downing Street parties during lockdown. Boris Johnson says he recognises people are indignant at the findings of Sue Gray's publication, but defies calls to resign. The 37-page document details a number of events where people gathered and drank alcohol, concluding senior leadership must bear responsibility for this culture. The Prime Minister says he'll keep moving forward and deliver on the priorities of the people.
When some of these officials and advisors were leaving their jobs, I briefly attended gatherings to thank them for everything they had done, because I believe that recognising achievement and preserving morale are essential duties of leadership. The police did not find my attendance at these occasions to be a breach of the rules, but they found otherwise in respect of some of those gatherings after I had left or when I was not in the building.
A woman whose father died from coronavirus has accused the government of raucous and savage behaviour following the release of Sue Gray's report.
My dad could barely breathe and speak to us. On the day that he died, we got a call from the hospital.
To other news now. The governor of Texas says a teenage gunman who killed 21 people at a primary school posted on social media that he was going to shoot shortly before the attack. He also posted that he had shot his grandmother, who remains in a critical condition. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed while barricaded in a classroom. The 18-year-old suspect, Salvador Ramos, was shot dead by an officer at the scene. New York Governor Kathy Hochul says she plans to increase the age limit that people can buy guns.
How does an 18-year-old purchase an AR-15 in the state of New York? I want to work with the legislature to change that. I want it to be 21. I think that's just common sense. I don't want 18-year-olds to have guns.
The Prince of Wales has met Ukrainian refugees during a trip to Romania. On a tour of a donation centre for refugees in Bucharest, Prince Charles told families he is full of admiration for the Ukrainian people. More than 1 million Ukrainians have crossed the border into Romania since the war began. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get straight back to Dan Wootton Tonight.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now in our Media Buzz. The first front pages have just come in hot off the press, and there's certainly some Partygate hysteria in tomorrow's Northern Echo. Blood on your filthy, privileged hands is its headline, as the paper leads with the Labour MP for Middlesbrough, Andy McDonald's scathing overreaction to the Sue Gray report. The Eye naturally follows suit, saying failure of leadership in the headline, as the paper reports that several Tory MPs have called for Boris to resign over Gray's report. Not really, though, mainly the usual suspects. And buried on the front page in the fine print, some news that really matters. Rishi Sunak will today announce his plan to help ease the cost of living crisis. The Metro leads on text messages contained in the report from Boris Johnson's principal private secretary, or former principal private secretary now, Martin Reynolds, who told Downing Street colleagues, "We got away with it," after one particular gathering. He is, or was, a civil servant, of course. My superstar panel back with me now, the Star Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platell, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Breaking tonight, Boris Johnson has addressed the 1922 committee behind closed doors as he tries to move on from Partygate. The PM has been speaking to Tory backbench MPs who he needs on side to avoid a vote of no confidence and stay in power. It comes as Sue Gray finally delivered her long-awaited report today, revealing photos of the birthday bash for which Bojo received his sole fine. And here it is, folks. The thing Labour think should bring down our democratically elected Prime Minister: a bunch of crusty M&S sandwiches, a jug of orange juice and 6 unopened beer cans. That's it! Even the most hysterical of lefties must admit that's a damp squib, right? So now the real pressure is actually on Slippery Starmer, who remains under police investigation for his much more egregious breach of the rules, where he was filmed downing booze and munching on a late-night curry with colleagues away from his home residence. The PM called out the rank hypocrisy in Parliament today as Sir Bear Korma, as Boris now calls him, tried to harp on about the birthday fine while under investigation himself.
He should at least be consistent and hold himself to the same standards. He's still there, and so is the shadow deputy leader. And Mr. Speaker, I apologise when the revelations emerged. I continue to apologise. But I think in view of the mess that he has found himself in himself, it would now be a sensible thing for him too to apologise, so that we can all collectively move on.
So, with the big reveal of Boris's birthday breach paling in comparison to Beargate, has the Sue Gray report put Keir Starmer in a more perilous position, Adam Brooks?
Yes, it has. Because there's not a lot of difference between the photos we've seen in the report and the video and the footage that we've seen.
Well, I think Starmer's is much worse, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
because Boris, in what we've seen, he was not consuming any alcohol. He was holding a glass of wine, a plastic cup of wine. He was holding an unopened beer can. But Starmer, he's downing the beer. Glog, glog, glog.
He was just drinking it. We've also got to remember there was different times, different restrictions, you know, from these. But he hasn't really got a leg to stand on when we see footage like that. And now what we've seen in the Sue Gray report. You know, I personally now have had enough of all of it. I would like this investigation closed, and I would just like to move on and get on with solving this crisis that we're in.
But he is still, at the moment, he's kind of banged to rights, isn't he, Starmer? As you say,
he created this situation for himself.
First of all, he created it.
He said that Boris should go just because he had been investigated before he'd even been found guilty.
Like that. I'm
but
on
Dan,
your
the public have had enough of this now.
Okay?
The public have had enough. You know, everyone I speak to, they're bored by this.
But 15 or 20 people stuffing their faces with curry, right? He was signing autographs for some, you know, local sports people, and then said, but we were working late into the night. Right, well, that was, you know, that was Boris's defence.
Ashley James, this is the issue, isn't it? It's actually a lot worse for Keir Starmer now because he remains under police investigation.
I'm not sure if it's worse for Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, his event was on the 30th of April. the Conservative parties, the 15th of May, the 20th of May, the 18th of June, the 19th of June, the 13th of November, the 27th
Boris
of
wasn't
November,
at all of those.
10th, the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th December, 14th of Jan, 16th of April, 2 parties. So 16 parties in total. Keir Starmer didn't make the rules. By the way, this is for me isn't about politics because I don't particularly like either of them, and I would be saying the same thing if it was Keir Starmer. But we cannot compare one situation. And by the way, there were quite damning photos of empty gin bottles. We know that they had wine time Fridays. They, as I mentioned earlier, they showed he is the leader and he walked into these environments. And these are only the things that have come out. And Boris Johnson has been very careful in that they could have... I'm bored of it as well, but this isn't the end of it. And not because it's political, because he's now...
Okay, but what about
the Parliamentary Standards report, he lied to Parliament. Now we have to establish, did he lie to Parliament?
Starmer lied.
There are already key factors. The reason that Boris is... we have every cough and spit of everything he's ever done is because he's in number 10 and everything that he does is monitored. The only reason that Keir Starmer... I'm pointing at you now. The only reason that Keir Starmer has been caught was because 2 guys happened to be across the road and videoed it. We have no idea how many other times he broke the rule.
And he lied about Angela Rayner.
Well, he didn't just lie about Angela Rayner. He lied about Angela Rayner. He lied about why he had to order food there. He claimed that there was no food available.
There were 6 people now, there's
no
20.
restaurants were open. He lied about the number of people there.
Yeah, and we want people in politics who have good morals and integrity and who walk the talk. And Boris Johnson put these rules in place. I would love for him to say
but Keir
lockdown
Starmer
is too
supported
strict.
them and actually he wanted them...
But he has also said...
them to be
he has also
harder.
said if he is found to have broken the law, he will sign. And that shows integrity. It shows leadership.
He knows he's not going to get an FPM by Durham police.
I just don't think that being disrespectful to cleaners having to wipe wine
but that's
off
civil
walls,
servants, many of which
Did
might
you hear
even
what
vote
Michael
Labour?
Fabricant revealed earlier on the show, actually? It was a nice little scoop. Boris Johnson, he will be getting up tomorrow morning at number 10 Downing Street at 6:30am so that he can go and personally apologise to all of the cleaners who are coming off the night shift before they go home. To me, that's someone who's taking this seriously, Ashley.
I mean, it's nice of him to apologise now that he's been caught.
He's apologising on other people's behalf.
That is what a leader should do.
Right, and now he's
even if he went in there for 10 minutes, for 5 minutes, he should have as a leader of... if he had moral integrity, he should have been like, this isn't acceptable.
Okay.
Even Sue Gray's report said senior leadership, they must have the bear responsibility for the culture.
Yeah, but you do have to clarify between the fact that a lot of these folk were civil servants who Boris Johnson...
But will changing the PM help the cost of living crisis and help the Ukraine crisis?
It will plunge
no, it will not.
into crisis. Now, look, I do want to move on to presumably one of your old mates, Adam Brooks, Katie Price.
Not one of my old mates. I've met Katie a couple of times in my industry.
Partied with her in your past?
No, not partied, no.
OK. Now, glamour model Katie Price once again making headlines for all the wrong reasons after pleading guilty to breaching a restraining order against her ex-husband's fiancée. Katie was banned from contacting Michelle Pentecost directly or indirectly in June 2019 after hurling abuse at her in a school playground. However, in January this year, she sent a message to ex-hubby Karen Hayler saying, "Tell your girlfriend not to start on me," as well as calling Michelle a load of foul-mouthed names that I can't repeat here. Katie has often, I've got to be honest, you can see there, showing a flagrant disregard for the law after being banned from driving on 5 separate occasions, and she narrowly avoided a jail sentence last year for crashing her car under the influence of cocaine and alcohol. But for this latest offence, the judge has warned that she risks being sent to prison when she's sentenced next month. So, look, I find this one difficult. Katie has been skating on seriously thin ice recently, and I do start to think that maybe it is only a jail sentence that will actually be the wake-up call that she quite clearly needs. But I say that more out of concern for her than any type of desire to see her behind bars. But unlike Jordan, Anthony Joshua has long been considered a media darling. But have we got to know the real Anthony Joshua in an extraordinary moment the British boxer has been caught squaring up to a group of university students. So this is because Joshua trains at Loughborough University, where he was heckled by a group who accused him of avoiding a fight with fellow heavyweight Tyson Fury. Now, clearly those hecklers are a bit of, you know, that's sort of like mouthy undergrads, right? But that's what happens at a university. But rather oddly, AJ took the ribbing to heart, and the gloves were well and truly off as he stormed up to the student halls to deliver a terrifying word of warning.
Remember you're running your mouth, because when I bring people up here and I start cracking your glass jaws, none of you will like it. When your jaws start breaking, people start chasing you out of this uni, none of you will like it. Watch your mouths, because you don't know who you're talking to sometimes. I know, listen, all that public eye bullshit, I ain't into all that.
Totally bizarre. I mean, clearly Anthony Joshua is a bit precious about comparisons to Fury, and the Gypsy King had to have his say on the matter as he tweeted, "I have this effect on the best of them." Certainly won't see me calling AJ our big dosser anytime soon, if that's how he's going to react. Just imagine that. You're sitting in your dorm room chatting to your mates, Anthony Joshua, knock, knock, knock. I'm going to threaten to beat you up. AJ, that wasn't cool. That was not cool. Ashley James, Adam Brooks and Adam Patel do stand by, because coming up after scheming, Sturgeon becomes the longest-serving First Minister of Scotland. Is she the worst thing to happen to the nation? My superstar panel will debate that with me as the media buzz continues. But next, after I broke the terrible news yesterday that friend of the show, Thomas Markle, has suffered from a major stroke, I'm going to be joined live by his daughter, Samantha Markle, from Florida, as she hits out at her sister, Meghan, for inflicting unforgivable torture on their father. Samantha, live with this exclusive update on the health of her dad in just 2 minutes' time.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices. With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Now we're going to cross straight now live to Florida in the US, where I'm joined by the estranged sister of the Duchess of Sussex, Samantha Markle. Now, as I sadly reported yesterday, Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, has worryingly suffered from a major stroke. He is currently in an American hospital. The medical emergency tragically happened just 7 days before Thomas, who's just such a great guy, a good man, was due to fly out to London to join us here at GB News for our coverage of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. So, Samantha, this has just been terrible news. Firstly, and most importantly, How is Thomas doing today?
Even he's doing better. He's in good spirits, and so it's still hard for me to talk about because he's been through so much. 2 heart attacks, a pandemic, a stroke, and two. I mean, I don't think he saw it coming, but he's doing better. He's in good spirits. I'm just so thankful to God that I called him when I did.
I know.
Because he was slurring his speech. He couldn't talk, and I feel like had we not gotten emergency care right away, it could have been fatal. So, I feel. Excuse me. I feel really. Sorry.
I'm so sorry, Samantha. Just take your time.
Blessed. Oh, I feel really blessed. He's gaining some of his strength back, and it's going to take several, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, to get his speech back.
Okay.
And he can work with a speech therapist, and it's good. I mean, this stroke he had in the speech production part of the brain wasn't so big that he can't recover. But, when you're almost 80 years old, there's less plasticity and things are more difficult. So while he has the memory of the words and the associations, retraining, the stroke was in the right side of the brain. So the damage was on the left, and he's left-handed, but it also impaired his speech and his ability to swallow.
And Samantha, what's so devastating about... Sorry, you go, Samantha.
No, just all things considered, it's amazing that he's in good spirits.
And thank God.
We're not. We're walking on eggshells and sad and having a tough time, but he's being our trooper. Yeah.
And he's a great man. And what is so devastating is, of course, he was due here in London in just a few days' time. Samantha, I just want to play you a little bit of our interview with Thomas from just a couple of weeks ago, the last major interview he gave, where he spoke about his excitement for coming to London and also the fact that he hoped to reunite with Meghan and Harry while he was here.
I'm getting the feeling that if they know I'm coming, they won't be coming. But if they do come, I would love to. I would love to reach out and speak with them and try to figure out what went wrong and how we can repair it. I don't see that happening, but I certainly would like to try.
And Samantha, what that interview showed me so clearly is that Thomas holds forgiveness in his heart. He is desperate to reunite with your sister Meghan in order to meet the grandchildren who he has never even got to see in the flesh, Archie and Lilibet. Dare I ask, Samantha, if the family or Thomas or you or your brother have heard from either Meghan or Harry since your dad was rushed to hospital in this emergency?
No, and let me speak to something very important. My father has a huge heart, and even though he was not in the wrong, although I've seen trolls out there and people in social media saying, oh, well, he was bashing her in public. No, he was defending himself, and he was speaking truthfully while still always reaching out to her. He wasn't bashing her, and the public didn't know. He was responding to a media agenda. He was responding to paid PR that made him look awful. Even though she didn't publicly speak out against him, neither did she advocate publicly for him, knowing that he was being tortured in the media. So when he was speaking out and he had a right to defend himself and set the record straight, that is not bashing. And through all of that and feeling like he was unjustly defending himself because he didn't do anything wrong, She, I believe, had a moral obligation, in my opinion, to step forward at any time. 2 heart attacks. There were no staged photos. There was no scandal. That was a setup. That was a lie. Never did she step forward and say, God, please respect my father. He's done nothing wrong. We'll work this out. Never did she contact him to work it out. Never did she make a public statement or contact him privately to make amends as a humanitarian and as the daughter that he loves so much and gave the world to. I mean, everything that she has now would not exist without my father. And so that being said, you know, God, if 2 heart attacks, a pandemic, and a stroke don't speak to her, then it's between her and God now. There is no other way. If she can't find it in her heart and doesn't have the moral conscience to reach back to him while his life hangs in a balance and he's reaching out to her, then there is no point. And then shame on her, in my opinion. And she's got to live with that. And if she can do that, well, then she can take that to her grave. That's a choice she has to make. And, but my father's getting stronger, and I'm just going to tell her, like sands through the hourglass, she doesn't have a lot of time to fix this. And it is her moral obligation to fix this.
It is. And she will regret it, Samantha, for the rest of her life if she does not pick up the phone and speak to her ailing father, who is a good man. I feel so strongly about that. Now, Samantha, you mentioned these trolls. Now, I was told that some of these trolls who had been targeting your father, they're known as the Sussex Squad. We both know what they're like. They're deeply unpleasant people. That these trolls had been causing your father so much stress that actually his blood pressure had increased before the stroke as a result. Is that true?
Well, they would love to take credit for that because they're mentally unhinged. They're, just vile people. Social media can be toxic. But I think the bigger picture is that her disregard, in my opinion, never reaching out, never advocating for him through 2 heart attacks, through a pandemic, knowing that he was trapped in the house because of media pressure. And during a pandemic, everybody was more sedentary and reclusive and not going out. So all things taken together really took a toll on his health. And she had to foresee that this wouldn't be good for him. So I feel there's a negligence there. In my opinion, I feel like it's in my opinion, elder abuse, because she had to see what's happening and not work to help him to reciprocate, to make sure he was taken care of and loved and everything that he deserves. And so there is no excuse for the disregard. There is no excuse for the callous observation of everything that he was going through. And she wasn't blind to it. She saw what was happening in the media. So I don't understand how she could just do nothing watching it all.
And Sam, we're in this crazy situation at the moment where your dad is in a hospital in the US. Literally, Meghan, his daughter, who he previously had a very strong relationship with before she entered the royal family, is literally, I checked on my Google Maps, she's literally a 3.5 hour drive away. She could get in her car right now and be by your father's bedside in 3.5 hours from her home in Montecito. There's also the issue, Samantha, of the cost of medical treatment. It's very likely that Thomas is going to need months and months of 24/7 rehabilitation. We know she is a multi-millionaire now. She's got more money than she ever needs. Do you feel like it's her moral responsibility to, at the very least, help fund your dad's treatment?
Given the fact that, and he never wanted repayment. That's not what the principle is. Given the fact that he gave her everything from her first steps, private kindergarten, private, elementary school, private junior high, private, everything. apartments, and she wanted for nothing. And so, you know, I don't think, and a lot of people like to say, well, she doesn't have to, you know, pay him back. No, she doesn't. But it's what's right in terms of reciprocating as our parents get older, our parents who gave us everything. You can't take everything from him and watch him suffer. No, who does that? And you know, and you brought up a good point, Dan. You know, the bottom line is she used to brag about him on the TIG. She did little videos bragging about how he wished her, you know, the best of luck when she went on auditions. And she kept his little notes in a trinket box on the nightstand. That didn't all go away. Why? Because we know there was a lot that happened at the wedding. There was a lot of dishonesty that occurred. And so rather than just be honest and be embracing, I guess it seems like it made better sense in her mind to keep everyone away, including the father who gave her everything because he could talk and
But the thing is, Sam, that is water under the bridge now. You know, Thomas is in serious medical strife, and this is her last chance. So if you had an opportunity, Samantha, because you know she will see this, is there anything you would like to say directly to Meghan tonight?
You know, she sees all of this. I'm getting the feeling, though, that I would be spinning my wheels to try and appeal to her heart or her moral conscience, because, God, if 2 heart attacks didn't, you know, shake that reality loose and that understanding, that awareness, a pandemic, and she knows about the stroke now. He could die. And I don't know, I mean, we haven't seen anything come out of her to suggest that that would be heartbreaking or crush her. And if it's not, then there's a huge problem. There's a huge disconnect. I really don't have anything more to say to her.
Well, look, Samantha, you know how wonderful I think your family is. I think you have been portrayed appallingly by much of the media. I know from speaking to you all day yesterday, you are beside yourself about your dad's health. So I send you so much love. I send your dad even more love. And you know what? We'll get him here, hopefully, to London one day. Samantha Markle, do keep in touch with us, OK?
Thank you. I sent him everyone's love from the UK. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. Godspeed. Now, coming up, has the Sue Gray report proven how unworkable and ridiculous the lockdown restrictions actually were? Columnist extraordinaire Rod Little uncancelled at 10:40 around that time. But next, after a long 7 years and 186 days of scheming Sturgeon as First Minister, is she the worst thing to happen to Scotland, maybe ever, politically anyway? I'll get the thoughts of my superstar panel straight after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So let's return to tomorrow's News Tonight now on our Media Buzz. Lots of front pages have just been delivered. The Guardian, on one hand, describes how there were shock horror beers and sandwiches around the Cabinet Office table and pictures from Sue Gray's report. The Daily Mail, though, Amanda Platel's newspaper, continues to be the voice of reason in a sea of hysteria as it asks, is that it? Quite rightly, the paper mocks pictures of Boris and Rishi looming over M&S snacks and juice. Elsewhere, columnist Richard Kay says it's now time for Harry to finally make peace with stricken Thomas Markle. And after hearing that really heartbreaking interview with Samantha Markle just then, I really challenge anyone to disagree with that. The Sun, well, they've also displayed a dollop of common sense by emphatically declaring the Partygate is over, before urging the PM to move on and focus on battling the cost of living crisis. And at last, a front page that isn't leading on Partygate. The Telegraph's headline, Sunak to extend emergency bill relief. The Chancellor is set to announce that every household in the country will get further reductions on their energy bills this autumn, which is to be funded by a new oil and gas windfall tax. My superstar panel back now, the aforementioned Amanda Patel, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. But now tonight, Nicola Sturgeon will, I'm sure, be toasting with Buckfast as she today becomes the longest-serving Scottish First Minister in history. Boo! She served a long 7 years and 186 days, taking the title from her predecessor and mentor turned enemy, Alex Salmond, who resigned following the SNP's defeat in the 2014 independence referendum. But she might not be in the role much longer if she fails to learn from the mistakes of her predecessor and continues pushing for Indie Ref 2, which she officially launched a case for in the Craven Scottish MSM this week. Then again, Sturgeon has to obsess about independence because she doesn't exactly have much else on her resume. Scotland's drug deaths have risen to record levels for 7 years in a row and are currently almost 5 times higher than England's. The attainment gap between pupils from low and high income backgrounds has actually gotten worse, according to figures from December, despite Sturgeon naming it her #1 priority in 2016. And that's before you get into the fairy scandal that's seen the SNP accused of wasting at least £250 million on a delayed and doomed project, with Sturgeon forced to deny covering up a botched contract. That wouldn't be the first cover-up allegation Sturgeon's faced, though. She kept Scotland in the dark over its first mass COVID outbreak at a Nike conference in March 2020, before milking the pandemic for all it was worth to the detriment of her people, who last year learnt they were living in Europe's COVID capital, all in a desperate bid to keep up her popularity, which fell almost 40 points once she was no longer scaremongering the public daily on the BBC. Scottish Conservatives leader Douglas Ross describes Sturgeon as, quote, appalling across virtually every policy area, adding hers is a story of failure and broken promises. Amanda Platel, is Nicola Sturgeon the worst thing to happen to Scotland?
Well, you forgot to add about that overstuffed little haggis that she has doubled the deficit in Scotland to, I believe, £36 billion, apart from, you know, the drug abuse, all the problems that she's got in that country. And the only thing, it really annoys me when people say, you know, longest serving. You know, Margaret Thatcher served for 11 years as Prime Minister, and the only thing Nicola Sturgeon has in common with Margaret Thatcher is that her hairstyle never changed, but Margaret Thatcher's was never a wig.
Ooh. Oh, claws out.
That's not catty. What's wrong with wearing a wig?
And you were here slagging off Angela's hair extensions the other week. What have you got with female politicians' hair?
But sorry, I mean, not that I care, but are you saying Nicola Sturgeon wears a wig?
How does your hair stay exactly the same, except for yours, Dan? Which is clearly not a wig. I can vouch to everyone. Pull it.
Adam Brooks, she's blocked you on Twitter.
Yeah, she did block me on Twitter.
Why?
Because I sent her the evidence against vaccine passports and I got a block the next
She doesn't
day.
like evidence.
Doesn't like evidence.
Actually, James, you like Nicola Sturgeon, though. Why?
No, I don't like her. I think she's very, very mixed. I also think we have to respect the fact she's been democratically elected several times. She has done some amazing things, like doubled the allowance of free childcare, lots of family-friendly achievements, like the baby box and expansion of free school meals. However, is she the worst thing to come out of Scotland? I feel like we could potentially argue Ian Brady or Dennis Nelson might be worse.
yeah, even I would agree with that.
She's divisive, she's hypocritical, she's fouled the Scottish people, and she's set relations back, English-Scottish relations,
And
decades.
lots of English people and Welsh and other people in the kingdom would actually pay for them to leave.
Amanda's tough tonight. Now, the new trailer for the upcoming Elvis Presley biopic from the director behind the Oscar-nominated Moulin Rouge, one of the greatest movies of all time, by the way. That's not just my opinion, that's a fact. Has left fans all shook up. The glitzy retelling of the King's life stars up-and-comer Austin Butler. He's going to be a big star. You probably may have seen him in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it features Tom Hanks as notorious manager Colonel Tom Parker. It's Aussie filmmaker, and he's a bona fide genius in my books. Baz Luhrmann's first big-screen project since his brilliant adaptation of The Great Gatsby starring Leonardo DiCaprio back in 2013. And it's set to thrust its way into cinemas next month. I'm very excited about it. I think you will be too once you've seen this.
A lot of people saying a lot of things, but in the end, you got to listen to yourself.
In that moment, Elvis the man was sacrificed, and Elvis the God was born.
I'm going to show you what the real Elvis is like tonight. If you're looking for trouble, you came to the right place. If you're looking for trouble, look right in my face.
He had no idea what he had done.
Oh, wow, it looks amazing, doesn't it? No wonder there is already Oscar talk around this movie. I'm certainly going to be going to see it. My superstar panel, Amanda Patel, Adam Brooks, Ashley James, do stand by, because coming up I will take a chance on pop superstars ABBA and maybe even name them today's greatest Briton. You'll have to find out before the end of the show. But first, as the Sue Gray report reveals, the government were more concerned about the comms risk of their Partygate events than the health risk. Should the government have released us from our lockdown hell sooner? Columnist extraordinaire Rod Little will get stuck into that next in Uncancelled. But first, a quick look at what's coming up on tomorrow's show with the fantastic Patrick Christus, by the way. I'm not here tomorrow night. I'm going to explain why very shortly, but I will be back with you on Monday. Have a look.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight with me, Patrick Christies. As the woke radicalisation of our children continues, I'll speak to the teacher ejected from his position and cancelled for speaking out against the harmful impact of lessons on race. Plus, it's a night of unfiltered opinion from political firebrand Anne Widdecombe, social media sensation Zuby and writer extraordinaire James Melville. And as ever, my superstar panel will be on hand to break down those headlines. They are Conservative commentator Dominique Samuels, former Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and author and journalist Amy Nickel. What's not to like, people? That's Dan Wootton Tonight with me, Patrick Christies, Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m, right here on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And amid the Partygate fallout, it's now clear that the government was more concerned with the optics of its Downing Street gatherings rather than the actual health risks they potentially presented from COVID. They weren't worried, they weren't scared, and they certainly weren't falling for outrageous fear-mongering propaganda like this, which they pumped out to the muzzled and caged nation. Their biggest concern about gatherings was the, quote, comms risk, a phrase used by the PM's former Director of Communications, Lee Kane, in relation to two events that took place within 3 months of the first lockdown. Even the government's boozing COVID task force failed to stick to its own rules, with Sue Gray noting that intentions to stick to a one-way system one-way systems, please, and observe social distancing went out the window at an event in December 2020. So with that in mind, should Number 10 have realised that lockdowns and other measures were completely unworkable much sooner? Rod Liddell, I mean, I would argue, I don't know if you would, but I would argue that the Sue Gray report means there can't possibly be lockdowns ever again, because who would be gullible enough to go along with them?
Well, that's the whole point, in that nobody would trust the government again when it tells you what to do, because everybody now knows that whatever the government tells you not to do, the government will do it happily and with impunity, and with not the slightest possibility that anyone will resign or that the Prime Minister will leave. It was a flagrant 16 times they breached the lockdown regulations, 16, including karaoke parties. This is at a time when we were allowed out to the shops once every fortnight, you know? And that
was Rod, just to clarify, that karaoke party wasn't Boris Johnson or any political advisor. That was the COVID task force.
Yes, quite. It was the COVID task force. I don't think Boris was at the party where someone threw up and someone else had a fight, that, you know, James and Oliver from the civil service knocking 7 bells out of each other. But nonetheless, there he was at his birthday party, which looked almost as dismal as Keir Starmer's curry night with the young socialists in Durham. But you just would not trust him an inch. Now, you know, Dan, you and I probably differ on this. I think that had it not been for the invasion of Ukraine, that Boris Johnson would have been gone by the end of February. And that's what senior Conservatives were telling me at the time. But that was before the invasion. He's handled the invasion pretty well. I think you have to say that. But nonetheless, it does not mitigate the way in which this government behaved. And it absolutely, as you say, Dan, it casts a whole bunch of doubt over whether lockdowns were remotely necessary at the time, and whether indeed the people who imposed those lockdowns believed in them or not, or only believed on them for the plebs. And this is going to be important, because I can feel in the news, especially if you watch the sort of congenital idiocies on the BBC, that they are moving closer towards talking about isolation for monkeypox. Which you know, I've read about monkeypox, and it doesn't scare me one bit. I'm not going to have sexual intercourse with a monkey, nor am I going to exchange bodily fluids with anyone outside of my own family. So it looks pretty much as if I'm safe. And even if I wasn't, the monkeypox seems to last about 3 weeks and then kind of disappear. But they're still ramping it up as a possible threat.
I know. It's almost like, Rod, those in power, but also those in the media, have become quite obsessed to this constant drumbeat of fear. I mean, Sly News is doing their daily monkeypox tally now. You know, it's a little breaking news alert that comes to my phone. They stop all of their coverage to say 7 people have got monkeypox. I mean, who cares? It's not a threat. It's an established illness that has been around for years. There are vaccines in order to counter it, and I just think it's scaremongering through and through. I can't see Rod. Has he gone? Oh, no, he's gone. What a shame. But thank you so much to Rod Liddell, the associate editor of The Spectator. I wanted to keep talking about monkeypox for a while. But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. And with me to reveal theirs is my superstar panel. The Daily Mail star columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platell is back. Alongside her, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks and the broadcaster Ashley James. So, Amanda Platell, who is your greatest Briton nominee?
I've learnt, Dan, now that I only win if I nominate a queen. So I'm nominating ABBA honorarily because the Dancing Queens are back, I'm told, tomorrow night for their new show. Would you know anything about that?
Well, I might. So you know, I said just a little bit earlier, I've got to explain why I'm not here tomorrow night, because it's very unlike me to take a night off during the week. And even though I know Patrick Christus will be brilliant, I'm going to miss everyone tomorrow. But I want you to understand why. Because tomorrow, for the last time ever in London, all 4 members of ABBA are going to come together. They have been pretty clear it's going to be the final event that they will do that. And of course, it is to launch this incredible new, there it is, ABBA stage show, which has never been done before. So you basically get to watch a concert by ABBA. But the people, you know, Björn and Agneta and everyone, these are like not real things, Amanda. They're holograms.
They're those weirdy things you have.
Avatars, they call them.
Avatars, yeah. But look, I would kill you, Dan, to be there tomorrow night, honestly.
I
It will be
couldn't
brilliant.
not be there. I could not be there. For anyone who doesn't know, and I know most of you probably do, I am an ABBA stereotype because I am a gigantic superfan. But really, this band are incredible. The fact that 40 years after they released their last album, they are still topping the charts now. They are still making brilliant music, and they are pushing forward with all of this new technology. Not to mention the fact, Amanda, they've done it after splitting up as 2 married couples. I mean, who can do that?
You tell me, Dan, what other song can you put on at a party, as I was at one recently, put Dancing Queen on, everyone's up. Doesn't matter the age. I'm sure that my colleague, Ashley, can sing all the words, and you can sing things like, thank you for the music, the songs we're singing. Go on, Dan.
Oh, I don't sing, but... Absolutely, we all know their lyrics. And it was very interesting. So when this comeback happened, you know, because everyone assumes, don't they, that in the UK, it's all about the Beatles. The Beatles are the greatest band ever. And of course, they are one of the greatest bands of all time. But actually, when you look at the polling, I think more Brits now say that ABBA is the greatest band of all time. I know so many people are going to be sending me angry emails and tweets. So many people say ABBA, now the greatest band of all time. There you go. Adam Brooks, your greatest British.
Mine is, it's got to be Ricky Gervais.
Why aren't you talking about ABBA?
It's got to be Ricky Gervais for his stand-up show and highlighting the absurdity of the women and trans rows that are going on in the world right now.
Oh, my goodness. We played some of this last night, but it made me laugh so much. So can I play it again? Because it was just brilliant.
Play it again.
Not all women. I mean the old-fashioned ones. You know, the old-fashioned women. Oh, God. You know, the ones with wombs. Oh.
That is another thing I'm going to do over the weekend. At some point, sit down to watch his Netflix special. He was actually the greatest Briton last night. So, Adam, I'm telling you now, you're not going to win.
Okay.
Ashley James, your greatest Briton nominee.
Well, mine is actually an honorary greatest Briton, and sorry if I don't say his surname right, but it is Steve Kerr, who was the NBA, or is the NBA Warriors coach for his, I think, echoing the sentiments and feelings of most of us around the world, the emotional plea for gun control and just like the utter devastation of what happened last night in America.
Yeah, well, let's we played it earlier with Megyn Kelly, but just in case people weren't tuned in, let's have another look.
Children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. Do you realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check? 90% of us. We are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
And he walked. But for me, today's greatest Briton, of course, it's ABBA. It's going to be a really special night tomorrow night. I will be keeping you posted through my social media channels at Dan Wootton. If you're an ABBA fan, you're not going to want to miss it. Union Jackass time now, though. Amanda Platel, your nominee.
Kurt Zuma, cat kicker, who pleaded guilty in court this week. And I think that we should launch a campaign on the show to find homes for those 2 beautiful kids.
Well, everyone wants them. Everyone wants those
cats. How do you know that? Have you already applied? I have.
No, because I've got my Dirk, and I will not introduce
and
a
I got
cat
Ted.
into the home with Dirk. Adam Brooks.
My honorary Union Jackass is Bill Gates for lecturing crowds at Davos and being this sort of godlike figure around the world. I'm not a fan.
And Ashley James, I have a feeling maybe I can predict who you're about to say, but go on.
Well, I know you're not going to agree with me, so I'm not going to win either of these tonight, but my union jackass is Boris Johnson, just for treating us like fools and for apologising because he got caught.
Do you forgive him, though, Ashley? That's what we asked earlier in the clash. Do you forgive him?
No, I don't forgive him, and I won't forgive him.
Oh, Ashley, find it in your heart. You've got to forgive and forget sometimes, and we've got to move on now from Partygate. Thank God it's over. But my union jackass is that scumbag Kurt Zuma. I'm sorry, you cannot abuse a cat like that. It makes me sick, and I think he should be locked up for it. I really do. Amanda Patel, Adam Brooks, Ashley James. My superstar panel, thank you so much. I'm back on Monday because I'm with Abba tomorrow night. Yes, but I'm leaving you in the capable hands of Patrick Christus. I know you'll be with him tomorrow. Good night.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Showers will ease overnight, clear spells for many, but it stays breezy. In fact, Thursday is another windy day, unseasonably so for May. Not a notoriously windy time of year, but nevertheless, we've got these tightly packed isobars across the UK, westerlies or southwesterlies for many, and weather fronts affecting us. Now, overnight, a gap between weather fronts, so showers easing, clear spells. There will be further downpours for central and northern Scotland, where it stays very windy overnight. And for Northern Ireland, for southwest Scotland, turning increasingly damp by the end of the night. 11 degrees here with 12 Celsius in the south, 7 or 8 for northern Scotland, a bit colder in sheltered spots. A showery start for the far north and northwest of Scotland. Outbreaks of rain in Northern Ireland clear away into southern Scotland and then drift south into northern England and North Wales. Heavy at times over higher ground, but otherwise it's mostly light and patchy, easing later. Drier further south with some sunny spells, albeit with a keen breeze, and highs of 22 Celsius for London. 16 for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but windy here with gales around the far north and northwest coastal areas. And further showers coming through, and they'll continue for northern Scotland during Thursday night into the start of Friday. Otherwise, the cloud and rain in central parts drifts south and disappears by the start of Friday. So, well, for many, it's a fine start to Friday. Plenty of sunshine about first thing, just some patchy cloud effect in the far southwest. And it stays mostly sunny for England and Wales, at least, into the afternoon. But cloudier skies will affect Scotland and Northern Ireland. Staying breezy here, with that breeze bringing further showers into the north of Scotland. And it will feel cool, but it's warming up further south, and high pressure will build from the south across all areas this weekend.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, and very shortly my guests, Eric and Diane here, and myself will be going through the newspapers to see what's in store for us tomorrow morning. First, however, here's the news headlines.